episode 499 TDB. What's going on, people? We are drinking some old stuff, some Liubao today. We are doing episode 500 after this one in a week, which we're not necessarily having super fancy tea for that episode, I'll put it that way. So we are drinking the very nice tea now.
Yeah.
And so this is the LLL Liubao from the 1970s from Teas We Like.
Cool.
I split a sample with my friend Dennis.
Great beginning of a name, definitely.
Dennis, yeah.
Nice.
Denny has been mistaken for Dennis.
Yeah.
Probably like, are you in the thousands now?
Exclusively by boomers. You have to be like above 70 to do it. What was it, Danny? Dennis?
Yeah.
I knew a Dennis in 1844.
Danny, too.
Yeah, Danny quite often.
The dark TDB is just Danny and Dennis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Denny Shadows.
Yeah, exactly. It's my evil Two-Face character. Anyway, no. I'm looking forward to this. And one of the reasons that we're not doing this with episode 500 is for these really nice teas, sure, you can have them with food, but not quite the right play, in my opinion.
Which does tell people we are doing episode 500 with some food.
Yeah.
So.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
It's fine. TV has never been... We're not like fucking in like a Nolan film. Or
right.
whatever.
You won't believe what they do for episode 500.
Yeah, it's something you would never see coming.
Yeah.
No, we
drink tea.
Honestly, we're not hardworking enough to come with that. Yeah. So this is from Teas We Like. So you can go out. I checked. You can definitely buy this now. Liubao is one of those teas that's sort of considered to be very ripe now, but it's also one that's undergone a lot of evolution in how it's processed. So in this era, it was processed with a little bit lighter fermentation. So you're going to taste a little bit more liveliness in this brew.
Cool.
Is what we would expect.
You're right.
So, yeah.
Good to know. And James, when you say fermentation, specifically you mean the process by which, for ripe teas, the tea master and the tea factory is basically adding living biota into the tea.
Right. Wet piling, where they basically control it by adding like a ton of heat and humidity, basically to make the tea softer and more mellow quickly.
Yeah. Right.
So in this case, Liubao now undergoes a fairly intense process. At least that's the most common way. Sort of like ripe, but back then it was less.
Yep.
Which means that the less you do it, the more liveliness you're going to maintain.
Right.
And so in theory, the more complex it will grow as it ages.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, looking forward to this. Beautiful red color. This deep auburn.
Yeah. Which is perhaps our first hint that this is not going to be... Because I'm using a fair amount of leaf here. But if you would expect like a ripe from the 1970s to be more or less probably pitch black would be the most likely color. So instead we're getting sort of this... The color is still very dark, but yeah.
And the material, I noticed on it had that sort of dusting of... It's not like it's that... Sometimes we've had some teas that... The name is escaping me now. Where it does that dusting of like the yellow mold on it. But this is more just...
Golden flowers.
Yeah, exactly. This is more like just that old tea hanging out for a while dust.
Old book.
Totally.
Sort of little earthy too.
Cheers.
Cheerio.
Some really interesting deep notes to your remark earlier about the liveliness. Not quite charcoal, but on the front of it, it has like a really deep, bassy notes. Nice, soft sweetness. Fruits coming now.
Yeah. Would you say that this is more earthy, more woody?
I think I would put this at earthy, more earthy than woody for sure.
Garden patch or
more so than like a ripe, like, so I think if I was drinking this blind, I would not mistake this for a ripe. This tastes like classic old tea, old raw flavors to me.
Right.
But then some of the things that are ripe-like about it is that it has a bit of that, it can sometimes have a bit of that sort of burnt charcoal flavor and sometimes a little bit of the cherry fruit thing going on.
I think you're right on about that charcoal flavor. I particularly get it on this brew. I in fact, I'm always curious what that cause of that is, because as far as I know, it's like it's not part of like the necessarily processing, and if it was, it would have been a long time ago.
Probably just the material.
Another notable thing about Liubao, and this is kind of Liubao 101 still, is the varietal that they use. For pour, it's always like the large leaf, or it's almost always the large leaf varietal, and Liubao it's a smaller one because the growing region is different.
Oh, incredible. Wow. I can tell this is going to be a strong tea. Not in an abrasive way, just that on the first steeping there's a lot of depth already. I'm looking forward to continue to drink this. What about you? What are you getting out of this?
A lot of what you're saying too. Definitely kind of that woody, earthy tones to it. I think that charcoal is spot on. It's definitely overall pretty smooth, but there's just a little bit of sharpness that makes me be like, okay, that's like your tip. This is not like a ripe.
Totally.
There's something about it that really does tip you off that this is not quite your like super aged ripe or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. There's still some oomph in here.
Yeah, it probably also indicates that the storage. I think if the storage was a little more intense, maybe it would have softened it up even more too.
Sure.
One of the interesting things about the tea sweet like note is like you don't exactly think of like a 1970s tea as like, oh yeah, I should put that away for it later. But it does say that it has enough liveliness that you could age this later. And I was like, I don't know about that. And now I can see it.
I see it.
I see it.
Yeah, I see it too. And it's for me, it's not off-putting, but there's a little hint of the sourness that you can sometimes still get from a raw tea that I can get in here. Whereas something that I feel like, to James' point, is kind of aged out. It's aged out completely. It's not going to age into new flavors. It's not that it's going to be less complex necessarily. But just lacking some of the strength and the depth that this material started with. I'm sure this was probably some pretty intense material to start.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's like, because it's like, I haven't had like a lot of raw Liubao that's like really young.
Right.
So it's like I have no idea what that would taste like. So.
Oh, so good. Sweet. It's just
Yeah, nice, interesting mouthfeel too. There's a good amount of thickness to it as well.
Yeah. For teas like this, James, how long would you expect this to be brewing out?
That's a good question. Liubao maybe a little bit less time than pu'er, and I really want to make sure we get like maximum extraction from these brews too. So probably 7-8 times at least.
Yeah. And the reason why is that going to be because it's been lightly processed and fermented to start, whereas a raw tea, it might take longer to age into the flavor profile, but it wouldn't be as the speed of which the ripening process would take place would be accelerated ever so slightly in this, by 20% compared to a typical raw from another region.
Yeah. Wait, so you're saying about that of longevity, or?
Well, in this case,
yeah.
Because it's been not artificially ripened, one could say, but sped along a bit faster,
sure.
It might also influence the length or longevity of the steepings that you would get.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, that's one of those ones that's always hard to say. It's like, does ripe brew less than raw because the material is shittier, or because of the process?
There's a oh, sorry, eyes closed. There's this like desert, dry, earthy, almost kind of yerba mate like flavor going on in here for me. That is pointing to the raw still potentially having something left to sort of digest. Almost slightly like yellow grass, like hay.
Interesting.
You know, but and not like sour, but there's still just the hint of the green material that it came from.
Yeah, you know, that's why I like having this tea with you, because it's like there is something about this tea is like just 25% of it that's just like not fully on the
crazy
smooth, soft garden patch end of things. There's definitely
for a 50-year-old tea, it's insane. Yeah.
Real quickly, mom test, no. Ultralight, no. Well, ultralight, you know, maybe, but maybe not optimal.
No,
but tea nerd, tea, yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely like a, you know, if you have a poor club with friends, which you probably don't because I mean,
you're an old person.
Realistically, book club, I'm going to poor club. Poo club.
Getting lit.
But yes, this would be an ideal tea for a tea meetup with other tea freaks.
And you can tell also by that there's a little bit still that can age here because of the tannin. There's almost a little bit of a mouth pucker. So good, very interesting. The charcoal is really interesting to me too. Almost hinting at kind of the wooey like rock taste.
But,
you know, a bit more
it's a little
dense.
mineral-y,
Ooh, quite nice.
Yeah.
In terms of when you would be, what time of year do you think you'd be drinking this?
Yeah, so I would say ideally kind of a winter time sort of tea, but this is one of those where it's like if you can get the gang together of like the proper tea drinkers, and it was even during like the heat of summer, like a 90-degree day, just drink the tea.
Totally.
Because I think the context that you have it is probably outweighs the kind of time of year. Be like, it's 70 degrees. I'm gonna wait for like a 40-degree day.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't think about it. That way for this tea.
Yeah. And if you're gonna place this in like a kind of 5 tea lineup with your tea nerd friends,
I was about to ask you the same question.
Yeah. Like, what do you? I'm kind of. I don't know. Actually, this one's also kind of a complicated one.
I think towards the end, I think you want to put it in a place that would accentuate it. I would have a hard time thinking that this tea is not going to be like the main highlight of the session.
Yeah.
So if you put it at the end, you want to make sure that you're not burnt out of tea by the end.
Right.
Putting it at the end could make sense, or putting it third or fourth could also make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's really we're drinking it, and the flavors are building in my mouth still. Have this kind of like bitterness that's slowly getting more dense, and it's just so good. Very active. Yeah. This is I consider this pretty strong. The flavors themselves are very approachable.
Yeah,
but it's potent.
For something so old too, it is really strong. Yeah, I think it's fairly unique, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is why I wanted to bring it on here too. And I mean, the great thing about this tea is so often when we're drinking like these really old or whatnot teas, it's like, oh, sorry guys, you can't buy this. But actually, you can buy this. It's $90 for 60 grams on Teas We Like, which is honestly not a bad deal at all. I mean, I'm using about 7 grams here, so it's like $10. I mean, I don't think that's crazy at all to spend
for something special like this. This is a special. Look, if you can max out a Starbucks order and get to a session that costs the same amount as this. That's an affordable tea in my book, right? This isn't some and I mean Teas We Like in general, they are doing great stuff. So I would recommend people pick this up. I think this is such a pu'er head tea, because like James said, this is pretty different for us. For me, like I don't.
And honestly, if you're not a pu'er drinker or not a fermented tea drinker, it might be kind of hard for you to pick up on.
Yeah, I agree.
So to some extent, it is weird. Like
right.
This is not an entry level tea. Or maybe even an intermediate. I think to really tell what's going on, you need to have some amount of teas under your belt, just to pick up on kind of like the liveliness of this. Yeah.
Very different. It's crazy to say that this material can age for more time, and we'll see how it looks in the future. But honestly, I'd be curious to see what the processing was like.
Right, yeah. And I believe the store tea at least was sourced from Malaysia, so it's not like the storage it's been getting is like particularly, it's not like it was been Seattle for 50 years. Right.
It's not very dry. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
God, that's insane, actually. Yeah. Cool. Let's do one more.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and if you're paying attention to how I'm brewing, I am brewing this for a good amount. So I'm trying to get kind of like these fairly potent brews. I think if I held back on the tea a little bit, it'd be a little softer, a little more mellow. But
yeah,
I'm trying to make this. I want to get the full experience.
I agree. I like it. I don't mind the bitterness too. I mean, if you're a coffee drinker and you're used to having that dark, bitter flavor early on in the morning, this is going to be a similar experience for you. Obviously, this is kind of a special daily drinker. I don't think you should do that, but I guess you could. Yeah, it's very intense, very kind of attention demanding.
Yeah. And the leaves are very small, and so that's another thing I did note about this tea too. It's like these are not like kind of the big fluffy leaves or whatnot. So I think that might indicate a little bit of potency as well. All right, this will be the last brew for now, but I think this is still going strong. So I would revise my initial estimate of like maybe 7 or 8 steeps to maybe 10.
Yeah.
This is a tea that's worth steeping for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
To get what you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's pristine. I would say the actual material itself is beautiful, and the there's no really cloudiness, or we gave it a rinse because it's flipping old, but yeah, no, nothing off about it. But
Orange drinker 42.
Right. Yeah. So familiar on the nose, but very different on the cup. Just so potent. I just feel like, lit up. Oh my god. Cheerio.
What type of thumbnail should I put for this one? It's like 50-year-old tea and just like do ridiculous faces.
Yeah. No way. I didn't know things could be 50 years old.
Yeah. Just like have us have the most stupid looking selfie we can of it.
I mean, what else is new?
That's been the fun thing that I've done this year for TV.
Oh my
God. The dumbest thumbnail. As usual, we are like 8 years late on technology.
It's so true. Yeah. Sweeter now, or not? It's not that it's sweeter. It's that some of those really bassy deep notes are slowly lightening up.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of reverting back to like that initial steep of like garden, wood, heavy, earthy.
Oh, really nice. Yeah. Oh, pick this up.
Yeah, and the nice thing about teas we like too is you can pick up a bunch of other Liubaos too that are like between the 1970s and 1990s, and that will kind of allow you to experience why this tea is a little different, because this one I think does. That's
a good point.
Stand out to be a little different than those teas.
I agree. I think to your point earlier about how to situate yourself around this tea, at the very least, if you want to dive into something like this, it would make sense to have some experience with a variety of ages of Liubao. And we've been lucky to be able to do that on the show. Thank you to James. But this is different, and this is a pickup for. Pick this up and keep it. Tea is not going to get cheaper, and hold on to it. So even if you're new, keep this in the back closet for that one special cup.
Oh yeah.
All right, James. Who are we telling this?
Wu-Tang.
Okay. Text this to Wu-Tang's manager and tell them that we have been doing marketing for those guys for far too long for free. And that we need at least a shirt or something.
Sponsored by Wu-Tang and a can of Beats.
You guys are like gamer shirts for the TV show. It's just with like ads everywhere.
Steel Series.
All right. Hey, thanks for watching, you weird freaking weirdos. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.